Kamala Harris is making it very clear that she's interested in equity, not so much equality.
Equality suggests often everybody should get the same thing. Well, that often assumes everybody started out in the same place, as opposed to equity, which is everyone should end up in the same place. And if you then understand not everybody started out in the same place, you understand some people need more. So we all end up in the same place.
And there's a really important core difference between those two words. They might sound really similar, but equity is a very different thing than equality. See, as she said in that speech, she wants equality of outcome. That's her working definition of equity, whereas equality would be more like equality of opportunity, equality under the law, things like the 14th Amendment, for example, guaranteeing that we all have the same rights as American citizens. There's not some people who are withheld certain rights while some people are granted rights that they didn't get. We have equality. In the United States, we have had equality for quite some time now, but that doesn't fit the bill. Nowadays, the liberals aren't interested in equality. They're interested in this idea of equity, that no matter how hard you might work, no matter how stupid you may be, how smart you may be, at the end of the day, we all end up equal in the exact same place. Now, for just a second, let's think about what this would actually look like in practice, taking Kamala Harris's words and somehow implementing them through the power of government. What would this actually look like? Well, imagine for just a second, if you will, that you work your butt off. You stay up super late, you wake up super early, you take weekends off, you don't go hang out with the boys because you are an inventor, you're an innovator, you're trying to figure something out, you're working tirelessly to develop prototypes and figure out some sort of a new invention to solve some sort of a societal problem. And eventually you succeed. Eventually, after 7 or 8 years, after tirelessly working countless hours, you finally produce this new invention, you put it out on the market, and a whole bunch of people decide, man, that guy's awesome, he's brilliant, he's smart, he worked super hard, he created this fantastic product. Let's buy it. And subsequently, you become very wealthy. You get super, super rich, rightfully so, because you worked really hard, you worked tirelessly, you made sacrifices in your life, etc., and now you are super, super rich. Now imagine that this would never happen, but imagine that I took all of those years off. I just sat there. I took a break to find myself, and I just overindulged on McDonald's and sat around and did nothing. I enjoyed the welfare system. I filed for unemployment. I did all of these things. I mooched, and I didn't work hard at all. And so as a result of that, unlike you, I'm broke. Even though you and I had the exact same opportunity, we had equality of opportunity, the same basic access, as close as we can get, the same basic access to the ability to innovate, even though we both were operating in the same economy, with the same laws, with the same rules, with the same regulations, you became really successful. Meanwhile, at nobody's fault besides my own, I didn't. Because I sat there and I did absolutely nothing except eat Cheetos, drink Mountain Dew, and vote Democrat. Well, now Kamala Harris comes along and she looks at that equation and she says, hang on, this guy has way more stuff than this guy has. And even though they had, more or less speaking, they had equality of opportunity, we don't have equality of outcome. She said it herself. She wants everyone to end up in the exact same place. So how does she make that happen? Is she going to come along and teach me how to become an innovator? Is she going to somehow, magically implant brilliant ideas into my head? No, she can't do that. That's impossible. So the only thing that she can do is, like I said, lower you to the lowest common denominator. She can take your stuff and distribute it to all of the people just like me who didn't work hard, who didn't make the sacrifices, who didn't bust their butt, who didn't stay up tirelessly, who didn't miss weekends and hanging out with the boys, who didn't do all of that stuff until eventually you are now dropped down to our level. This theory is quite clearly rooted in Marxist ideology. The entire premise of Marxism, one of the foundational building blocks that every single communist, every Marxist has ever tried to do, was they first found the disgruntled masses. They found all of the people, all of the, in many cases, the workers, right? The workers unite. They went and found all of the people, the have-nots, the have-nots, And they would go and convince all of them that their woes, their suffering, their plight in life was somehow because of that person. That one person who busted their butt, who innovated, who pushed society forward, advanced technology and etc. That one person who succeeded had somehow managed to do so at the expense of all of the lazy people who sat around and did absolutely nothing. And so the Marxists, they go and they weaponize that jealousy. They weaponize this sense of entitlement, and they convince all of these people that somehow, some way, that rich guy, that successful guy, that's their enemy. And so they do exactly what Kamala Harris did. They bring it in. They bring in this idea with fluffy language, with things that sound really nice. I mean, who wouldn't want everyone to be on the same page? Who wouldn't want everyone to be successful and happy and all of that? When in reality, it's a pipe dream that's more so like a nightmare. They're never actually going to help the lazy people. The only people who can help the lazy people are the lazy people. But let's say it's not so much of a binary. Well, let's say it's not just the super hardworking and just the super lazy, because in life, whether we like it or not, whether all of the free market conservatives will admit it or not everyone is dealt the same hand. That's just part of life. I have friends of mine who grew up in a fractured home. They only had maybe a single dad or a single mother. Economically, they didn't have the opportunities that I have. Maybe their parents didn't help them with, I don't know, my parents didn't help me with much, so I guess I can't say that. But maybe there are people out there who they grew up in a single parent household. They didn't have very much money. They really were struggling to make ends meet. And they grow up in that environment. They are, whether we like to admit it or not, they are starting in a worse place than someone who, for example, grew up and their mom's a doctor, their dad's a lawyer, and collectively they make $750,000 a year. That person got their entire college tuition paid for. That person, started off with a good car. Maybe their parents bought them a car. Maybe they co-signed on a lease for an apartment or something like that. They start off in a much better position than that other person did. That's just life. That's the unfortunate. It kind of breaks your heart if you're a sappy person, if you're someone who really has a bleeding heart. It's hard to look at that and think, wow, this is equality, because that's not equality. We have equality of opportunity, but we'll never have the equality in the very end, and we'll never have true equality in the very beginning. Our starting points and our finishing points they're going to be a little bit different, but that's just life. See, if you allow government to somehow attempt to even the playing field, to somehow attempt to say, okay, this kid grew up poor in a, underprivileged environment. This kid grew up wealthy in a very privileged environment. Let's somehow even the playing field. What you're doing, for one, is you're de-incentivizing this generational blessing, like the idea that a parent would leave their kids better off than they were. You're de-incentivizing that, but you're also making it terribly unfair for the kid who just so happened to have he committed the crime of being born into a halfway decent life, and then the government comes in, gets massive, because in order to actually do something like this, the government has to get extraordinarily large and pursue this goal of equity, which again, we go back to the same problems we had before. Now you're taking from some people in order to give to another. It's government picking winners and losers. That never works out well. It's anti-capitalistic, and it fosters government dependence. So I vehemently disagree with Kamala Harris when she says we need to pursue this equity. Life isn't fair. Life isn't equitable. What we can pursue is equality of opportunity. We can try and make the playing field, our laws and etc., as even as we possibly can. We can try and have free trade. We can try and have a capitalistic economy, which would allow for those people who grew up poor to succeed. If they work hard and they bust their butt, they can leave their kids in a better position than they were. By the way, the United States has tons of people who immigrate here, and they come here with nothing. They come here not even speaking our language, and they work really hard. They pursue the American dream, and the next thing you know, they're a millionaire by the time they're 55. It can be done. That's what we pursue. We don't punish the people who committed the crime of being born well off. We just create a free market system that makes it as easy as humanly possible for those people born into those less beneficial or less privileged circumstances, we make it as easy as humanly possible for them to climb the ladder, for them to, jump into that next tax bracket, for them to go up a notch as far as how much wealth they have and leave their kids a better life than they had. What's funny, right, is as we say that and we talk about the idea that, we want these people who may not have been born with the same privileges, we want to give them the opportunity to then give those privileges to their kids. Do you not see, like, the irony in this whole concept, this whole conversation of Kamala Harris, in the event that somebody was to do that, right? So imagine you've got, like, somebody who comes from the slums, they're totally broke, single mother, barely making ends meet. They innovate, they make a business, whatever it might be, they become super successful, and then they leave their kids in a better position than they grew up in. This idea of Kamala Harris would come in and literally penalize their kids for the success of their parents. You're not fostering the American dream. You're destroying the American dream. You're not fostering free market capitalism. You're destroying free market capitalism. And this is one of the kinds of things that they do to shove that wedge into a society, into a capitalistic society, separate it from its foundations, so that they can sneak in their socialist progression toward communism. That's exactly what that is. Anyways, folks, that's all I've got for you today. I disagree with Kamala Harris. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification icon. Check the channel pretty often because I'm going to keep posting longer format video content on here. We're almost to 7,000 subscribers at the time of uploading this, which is pretty cool. Thank you, guys. But that's all I have for today. Until next time, keep me in your prayers. Keep your country in your prayers. God bless.